Alright, so let's talk about the creation of content. Now, I'm not going to be able to go super in-depth into how to do everything here, but I want to give you an overview of what it takes to make a page that looks somewhat like this in regards to your content. Alright, so this is the front end of the page, and the menus and other options here are created by appearance menus generally. You'll have to figure out how your theme works, but most of that is set up through appearance menus and creating the menus based on the pages and content that is in there. You'll probably be creating a bit of menu content here, then going back and creating content, and then going back and adding it to the menu, a little bit back and forth. You also, in WordPress, have this thing called Theme Customizer, or under Theme Options. These are how you can control a lot of the different options. Alright, under Theme Customize for you, which is the name of the theme, we have site title, the tagline, you have the general information about how wide do you want the content to be, what kind of layout, if it's boxed or if it's wide. And over here is the preview, which will attempt to load up. You can change all of these bits and bobs, but they are going to be different for every theme. So it's hard to go through each and every one. Menus will just take you to the menus sort of dialogue. Blog controls some things with blog, but each one will be different. Footer is going to be important because oftentimes you may see a created by you WordPress theme, created by Akoda. Yeah, we don't want that. So we're going to remove that and see displaying the lower footer if it turns it off. And it does. Alright, so this also gives you an option for created by my game. I'll use Silvervine Games. And then that would replace that content there once it loads up, created by Silvervine Games. So you can see how the customize option works. Often you can find fonts as an option in here to choose custom fonts. You can find information on the different sort of color schemes. In this one, it happens to be under Customize Skins, and that's where you can find font settings, where you can go, usually choosing from Google Fonts. Lato is a very nice, very modern one that a lot of themes use. It's a good fallback font, but you can, change these to whatever you want. I don't know what Irish Grover is, but I kind of want to listen to that rock band. Alright, yeah, it's exactly what I thought. It is a very stylistic font. You, of course, want to stay away from very stylistic fonts most of the time. So, just going through here, playing, finding the fonts you want, seeing what you like, seeing what options the Customize has, that's what you're going to have to be doing a lot of as you go through and figure out how to set up the basic look of the theme. Alright. So the other thing you're going to have to look at is theme options, because every theme is going to have a lot of different options. Of course, there's the demo import. Here's some of the same stuff that was in Customize but may override it, stuff like search placeholder text. Here's how the dock bar, whether it's a sticky header or if it, comes in on the right-hand side. There's a dock bar option, and that is also what will be here for the responsive menu. You're going to have to go through these and just kind of, for whatever theme you pick, figure this out and go through and modify this as you need. A lot of different options are going to be in there, but that is how you're going to get the base overall look and theme and styles and color down, is through Customize and Theme Options. Let's actually talk about pages, because this is going to be one of the biggest time sinks, is creating the pages and the content. It always is. Alright, the content here, if you click Edit, brings up Visual Composer, and this is going to be common in many themes, or something similar to it is going to be common there. And what it does is it lays out columns and rows. So this here is one column. Hi, I'm John Doe. Hi, I'm John Doe. Alright, so that's how that is set up. But you can see up here there is editing for the row. And it'll bring up this thing with row settings, and you can choose various different elements. The row height is 75, content position is middle. This is where it sets the background image. This is where the padding is for the background image. It has a font color, and it is marked to a stretch row. Everyone is going to be a little different. I can't say it's going to be the same on all these themes, but this is where that is set up. Then you can see there are text blocks in here. Now you can click and edit one of these, and it's going to bring up a what you see is what you get editor, and you can change that information or set up your own. So now, very simple stuff here. Once you've updated it there and it reloads, comes up with hello John Doe, you know, the very simple change. All right, so working with Visual Editor is going to be very much about manipulating and creating these rows. You can often go in and load up a template from their template library. There are ones online that you can pull in. Some of them are premium that they want to sell to you, or many themes have already got them saved. You can also save a template once you've kind of worked on it, but you can always, this will duplicate a row. So now that is duplicated, and you can also change the amount of columns in a row. So just manipulate that, and so now I can pull information over into the center column or pull it into other columns as I want. Like I said, it would not be viable to give you a complete in-depth tutorial on how to use Visual Composer for everything. You can go and find that information through tutorials, but you can see here with me manipulating this how this is working. So there's that image, and there's I think outside the box. So let's go find that. So there's the empty space, and here's the I think outside the box element. So let's pull this over here, and then let's take a look at the row settings or the column settings for here. Here's where the column settings are. Here's the design options, and here's what it has as the background. So the way they're building this is they have a background image for this row, and they have set height and width set up for it, and then they have the content over here. There are responsive options if you need it. And this empty space is 300, so they're setting this with 300 pixels of empty space and height. And it works well when they go to responsive. So creating a lot of this content for somebody who is not a web developer and kind of understands how this fits into a Twitter bootstrap or the grids sort of setup is going to be taking and looking at this, how the theme has set it up to look right, and saying, I want to do something similar with my art, and kind of manipulating what they have. To be honest, manipulating a lot of this content as a web developer who understands those things is the exact same thing. Designers and developers have worked very hard to make this sort of stuff look right. I'm going to make use of their work and not reinvent the wheel. I am, however, going to customize and play with these things, but this is what you need to know about setting up most of the content in Visual Composer. This controls columns. This controls the row settings or the inner row settings. You can set margins and paddings, background images, and when you click plus on this, it will bring up an entire array of whatever is built into the theme. Every theme that uses Visual Composer will have a set of base options and then a couple of different things. So if I want to do a Google map, this theme happens to have that, and I can use these options to add that in. Text block is the very basic one. Post grids, progress bars, a calendar. There's just going to be a ton of stuff here, and you can find more online. The last thing that I want to tell you about setting up and manipulating this sort of stuff is how to not go crazy doing it, and that is to figure it out beforehand. I often will set up a Word document with a table in it and kind of lay out how I want a site to be set up. Here's my, just my very simple Word-based, visualization, like a storyboard that lets me kind of envision how I want to set this up, so that when I finally go back in here and say, okay, what's the little nitpick sort of thing here, I can build like this, and then fill in the rest of the information. So that is the very basics of it. I would definitely suggest going and looking at the theme documentation and looking at tutorials online for more, but I would also suggest taking the demo content and just manipulating the heck out of it and playing around with it and seeing how you can change it, and then making a new page that does the things you like out of it. That is the very, very basics of working with Visual Composer like that.